MIT acknowledges Indigenous people and the traditional stewards of the land and the entire enduring relationship that exists between them and their traditional territories. The land on which we sit is the traditional unceding territories of the Wampanoag Nation. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and the forced occupation of their territory. We honor and respect there are many diverse Indigenous people connected to this land on which we gather from time immemorial.
Good morning. My name is Austin Ashe. I work over at the MIT Sloan School, and it's my honor to be in community with you all this morning. I want to begin by acknowledging and giving thanks to the ABAC, ERG, the MIT Cipher, MIT Black Professionals Group, the Office of Minority Education, the Space Intercultural Center, and the MIT ICEO for their important roles, they have played in bringing us together as we seek to honor the life, sacrifice, and legacy of George Perry Floyd Jr. and all of those seemingly countless victims we have lost and continue to lose because they were murdered by police. I was invited to provide a message that might motivate or move us. And if I'm being honest, I'm unsure that my comments will do either, but they are from the heart, and I hope they move you in some sort of way. I believe that there is a power in reflection and stillness. And so I invite you to be still and recall where you sat or stood right before the jury read the verdict. How tense was your body? Were you holding your breath? Did you feel frozen? Did the lead up feel like an eternity? Then you heard the word for the first time, guilty. Do you remember what it felt like to let go of that first exhale? What was contained in the heaviness of that breath? Was it relief? Was it grief? Perhaps it was the irony of all of us holding on to our own precious breath since George's was snatched away from him. Then we heard the word again, guilty. Do you remember looking across the room or across a Zoom at a loved one, how your expressions in that moment communicated everything you needed to say, not only about that day, but the past year or 4 years? Then we heard the word for a third time, guilty. Do you remember the long, warm embrace of a loved one, holding them so tight because they got it right finally, but also because you wanted them to know, or they wanted you to know, that you are a treasure that deserves to be preserved and protected. Excuse me. At the conclusion of the trial, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison stated that the verdict was the, and I quote, the culmination of long, hard, painstaking work. But it should not be called justice, he said. He says, because justice implies true restoration. He followed those remarks with saying, now the cause of justice is in your hands, our hands. So many have sacrificed so that we may reach this summit. And now we are sitting atop the mountain. We can pause, we can exhale, we can share and embrace and feel validated. But does that mean we've won, that the work is over? Because at this point, we are now positioned to ask, what comes next? Where are we going? As we sit here in reflecting on the sacrifices of so many, know that in their sacrifice, they have gifted us all with the power to move forward down the hill as an unstoppable, immovable boulder, quaking the ground towards justice. Those who are gone did the hard work. We're here now. And all they ask is that we use our hands and give ourselves a little push. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to introduce Kelvin L Green, an MIT student and poet.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelvin, and as Austin said, I'm an undergraduate student. I wrote a letter to George Floyd in conjunction with Maya Angelou's poem, Hailey Baldwin, Floyd, Killings in Mayfield. Dear George, when I think of you, my heart grows heavy. I think of your daughter, who is missing her father. I think of your family, who is missing their rock. I think of 8 minutes and 46 seconds, but then I think of how that time did not stop 11 months of waiting for accountability. George, I see myself in you. I know that our lives are tied together, not in the evil we traverse, but in the good we've done. I choose not to think of death when I think of you, but they have kept your body on video, circulated your death like a spectacle, but I will not remember you that way. Others have forgotten about you since the words guilty and made your life simply a tool for justice. They forgot you were a father, a brother. They left your humanity in the courts. But when I think of you, I see every boy and man I know. I think of the fallen like great trees. For when great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses, restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be, and be better, for they existed. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Saint Dic. I work at the Office of Undergraduate Residential Life. And I'm also the creator of My Tea Black Professionals. At this time, we will be going through a moment of silence at 9:29. Feel free, if you like to shut off your camera, you can for yourself. Please have the moment of silence. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is DiOnetta Jones-Crayton, Associate Dean and Director in the Office of Minority Education. My charge is to offer a prayer, and I have some words before I pray as we sort of conclude this moment of silence. It is rare, like a golden tiger, more precious than the world's finest gems, as elusive or desirous as agelessness or beauty. It cannot be seen, though its effects are apparent and often felt, for it moves slowly but flies swiftly. With wisdom it is treasured, in foolishness it is squandered, for it cannot be loaned or borrowed, yet many are deceived into thinking it can be stolen. In reality, it can only be shared. If it stops, if it ends, peace and sorrow will follow. Nevertheless, it will stop and it must end. So be not like the foolish and squander it. Be like the wise and treasure it not in and of itself, but treasure those you are blessed to share it with. For truly, this is its ethereal gift. Do not be careless. Do not take it for granted. It waits for no one. It will not wait for you. Of course, with most art, meaning lies with the interpreter. However, here the author is referring to time. I know this because I am the author. And I didn't write this because I am a poet, not even striving to be. It's not even good poetry. This is the only the second time I've even been led to share something that I've written publicly. But for some reason, when I'm hurting the most, I think, I pray, and I write. In this specific case, I have been thinking about time in the context of the anniversary of George Floyd's murder. I've been thinking about time in terms of what I do with it, how I use it, my time on this earth, the time I spend with those I love, the time I spend enjoying life, celebrating the good, feeling grateful and blessed, versus the time I spend worrying, being fearful, being angry, disappointed, hurting, stressing, or feeling regret. The time I spend walking in and fulfilling my God-given purpose, the time I spend with my God. I think we honor George Floyd and so many others who have been cut by hatred and bias and racism and violence by remembering that their lives matter, our lives matter, and that the time we have left on this earth is precious. We can share our time with those who matter the most to us, and we can use our time to fight for, to speak against, to lift up those things that edify, protect, and fortify us all. I do have a prayer to offer, but I wanted to start here because I know that we may not all share the same faith or religious beliefs, and some of us may not even be religious, but we are all here and we all understand the concept of time. There is a very well-known passage in the Old Testament of the Christian Bible that rings true here. It says, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heavens." George Floyd's time on this side of heaven is no more, yet his life and his death have purpose. And while we would much rather have him here, and I am sure his family would rather have him here, because of him, we must humbly and respectfully acknowledge that a fuse has been lit throughout this nation and the world. Eyes long shut have been opened. A murderer has been found guilty and is behind bars, and the hearts of so many others have been convicted. A man's life was taken in 9 minutes and 29 seconds. And that act was birthed out of evil. But I believe that what man meant for evil can be transformed into an ultimate good. So if you can join me in a word of prayer, humble your hearts, close your eyes, whatever your beliefs may be. I think these words will resonate with you. Holy and most gracious Father, as we touch and agree in the Spirit, comfort our hearts and our minds as we remember George Floyd and the lives and the senseless deaths of so many of our brothers and sisters. Remind us that we are not alone, that we have friends and family members, loved ones and colleagues and allies who are standing with us, who are standing up for what is right and what is just. Stir up the many gifts inside of us all. Rekindle our joy and let justice prevail. Help us to be purveyors of truth and liberation and the proper reverence for time. We know that there is more work to be done. So help us to continue that good work. Help us to be strong and courageous, for you are with us wherever we go. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I pray. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. We stood here today for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, where on this day last year, George Floyd fought for his life in that length of time. People across the world, within our nation, watched in disarray with mixed emotions. We felt fear, we felt anger, we felt helpless, but that eventually led us to move towards action. Now, we didn't come here today for a progress report, but a reminder is set for today and every other day that we have a lot more work to do. We need diversity of thought to unify us when it comes to facing our biggest challenges. You see, diversity is not a quota, diversity is not a token, diversity is not an agenda, diversity is not a look, diversity is not a myth, diversity is not a fade, diversity is real. Diversity is culture, diversity is the present, and diversity is the future. Increasing our diversity is including all of our voices in the decisions and creating a culture that is open to change, where diverse perspectives are sought out. Listen, there is still time to make change because you made time to be here this morning. It doesn't matter the amount of influence or power each of us have, because change does not have rules. It doesn't have a rubric of any sort. Change does not ask for perfection. It does not ask to be fit in a size small, medium, or large. Change needs you to start right where you are. You can make the change within yourself, your friends, your family, your community. Our challenge for today is for us to just do the change, be the change, and live the change. We can change the world by affirming our people and valuing their stories and listening to their pain. And it's okay to be uncomfortable, because when we are in a fast-paced environment, we will always move towards the familiar, where we feel more comfortable. When we are uncomfortable, it is a sign we are starting a growth process. So it is my sincerest hope, after you leave today, that we will continue this dialogue and do this work while avoiding unnecessary setbacks that we have seen time and time again. George Floyd deserved to live. Black and brown people in this country deserve to live free from fear. Everyone deserves to live in a country that values Black lives. We can no longer be numb. We can no longer be silent. As many of us continue to heal from this ongoing trauma, we, and I mean all of us, can make a difference. And I'm going to repeat that. We all can make a difference. And I know this work is tiring work, but it is important work that we cannot give up on. So together, we must all work to build a bridge that leans towards an equal and just society for all of us. So I thank you all sincerely for taking the time to be here, but reminder that your challenge is to invoke change not only within yourself, but all around you, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. And so we thank you all for joining, but being in remembrance of George Floyd and the legacy that he's instilled in all of us. Thank you and have a blessed day.